In the early 1950s, American industry was choking on its own success. Steel, coal, and manufactured goods piled up west of the Rockies, while railroads bled money pushing freight up mountain grades. Then one railroad bet everything on a machine so loud it shattered windows, so radical engineers called it insane, and so powerful it embarrassed legends. This is how an aircraft engine on steel wheels quietly became the most profitable freight hauler in America, why cities tried to ban it across 6 states, and how a single global shock erased the loudest victory in railroad history. The question is simple: what happens when the best solution is also the most hated? Sherman Hill does not look like much on a map. 30 miles of track between Cheyenne and Laramie, Wyoming. But in 1950, those 30 miles were costing Union Pacific Railroad a fortune it could not afford to lose. The math was brutal. Every eastbound freight train climbing that 1.55% grade needed helper locomotives, sometimes 3 or 4 diesels, just to push a single consist over the summit. Each helper meant another crew, another fuel tank, another maintenance cycle. And when you are running 100 trains a week over the same piece of track, the costs compound into millions. Post-war America was moving more freight than any economy in human history. The transcontinental railroads were drowning in tonnage. But the Rocky Mountains did not care about demand. Physics ruled Sherman Hill, and physics said you needed more power or lighter trains. Union Pacific tried everything conventional wisdom offered. They bought the newest EMD diesels. They optimized consist weights. They refined crew schedules. Nothing changed the fundamental equation. Mountains ate profits, and there were only so many diesels you could couple together before you ran out of drawbar capacity. By 1951, Union Pacific executives faced a choice that would define the next 2 decades. Accept permanent margin erosion on mountain freight, or attempt something no American railroad had seriously considered. They chose the gamble. General Electric had been quietly experimenting with gas turbine locomotives since the 1940s. The concept was simple in theory, insane in practice. Take the jet engine technology developed for aircraft, scale it up, and mount it on a steel frame with wheels. The advantages were undeniable. Gas turbines produced massive horsepower per pound. They had fewer moving parts than diesels. Most critically, they could burn bunker C fuel, the thick, filthy residue left over from refining crude oil that was essentially worthless. While diesel cost 12 cents per gallon in 1952, bunker C sold for 3 cents, sometimes less. Union Pacific ordered 10 units in 1952. Each turbine locomotive generated 4,500 horsepower, 50% more than the most powerful diesel on rails. Later models would hit 8,500 horsepower. They called them big blows, and when the first one fired up at the Omaha shops, every engineer within earshot understood why. The turbine did not sound like a locomotive. It screamed like an aircraft taking off, a sustained shriek that measured over 130 decibels at idle. At full throttle, the noise was physically painful. GE's test reports documented severe auditory stress at 50 feet. Windows vibrated in their frames. Conversations became impossible. Santa Fe Railway watched the tests and passed. So did Great Northern. They were not gambling their futures on a machine that sounded like industrial warfare. Union Pacific put them in service anyway. The first turbines hit Sherman Hill in the winter of 1952. Dispatchers were skeptical, crews were terrified, and then the performance data started coming back. A single turbine could replace 3 diesel units on steep grades. Where conventional power needed helpers, the turbines climbed alone. Operating logs from 1954 show that just 10 turbines, representing only 2% of Union Pacific's total locomotive fleet, were hauling over 10% of all mountain freight tonnage. They ran longer trains, they ran them faster, they ran them cheaper. The economics were staggering. Each turbine saved approximately $300,000 per year in fuel costs alone. That is $3.4 million in 2024 dollars per locomotive per year. Maintenance costs were lower than diesel equivalents because turbines had fewer components to service. Helper operations dropped by 40% on Sherman Hill. Crew hours fell. Delays vanished. Union Pacific's internal reports from 1956 documented what no railroad executive wanted to believe. The Screaming Monsters were the most cost-effective freight haulers in North American history. Not the most powerful, not the most advanced, the most profitable. By 1958, Union Pacific operated 30 turbines. By 1969, they had 55, the largest fleet of gas turbine locomotives ever assembled. They dominated heavy freight routes across Wyoming, Utah, and Nevada for nearly 2 decades. But there was a cost no spreadsheet could capture. Green River, Wyoming, population 4,000, filed the first formal complaint in 1954. The turbines idled at the fueling station for hours, and the noise made sleep impossible for residents within half a mile. Windows cracked from sustained vibration. Elderly residents reported chest pain from the low-frequency pressure waves. Then came Rawlins, then Rock Springs, then Ogden, Utah. Municipal noise ordinances started appearing across 6 western states. Some cities tried to ban turbine operations entirely within city limits. Lawsuits piled up, property value losses, health complaints, and public nuisance claims. One Green River resident's testimony from a 1959 hearing described the sound as standing next to a jet engine that never takes off. Union Pacific fought every ordinance. They paid settlements. They installed experimental mufflers that barely worked. They rerouted some trains. But they never stopped running the turbines because the economics left them no choice. Crews developed hearing protection protocols. Towns adapted or moved. The turbines kept screaming through the night, hauling fortune after fortune over the mountains while America tried to sleep. For 20 years, it worked. The most hated locomotives in the West were also the most indispensable. Cities could complain, engineers could cringe, accountants worshipped them. Then, in October 1973, the world changed the equation. OPEC oil embargo didn't target gas turbine locomotives specifically. It targeted everything. Crude oil prices quadrupled in 6 months. Refined products followed, and bunker C fuel, that worthless residue that made the turbines economically viable, suddenly cost as much as diesel. The advantage evaporated overnight. Union Pacific's fuel cost projections for 1974 showed the impossible. Turbines now cost more per ton mile than conventional diesels. The 3-cent fuel had become 12 cents, sometimes 15 cents. The $300,000 annual savings reversed into losses. Nothing mechanical failed. The turbines ran as powerfully as ever. They still conquered Sherman Hill with contemptuous ease. But the business case, the only reason they existed, disappeared into geopolitical chaos. By 1975, Union Pacific began retiring units. By 1977, all 55 turbines were gone. Some were sold for parts, Most were cut up for scrap. The last one ran on January 26, 1970, a mundane freight over Sherman Hill, the same route it had dominated for a quarter century. No ceremony, no farewell tour. The most profitable locomotive experiment in American history ended because fuel markets made it irrelevant. Diesel won. Not because it was better engineered, not because it was more powerful. Diesel won because it was safer in an unstable world. Safer from geopolitics, from commodity price shocks, from the forces no engineer could design around. The turbines proved that a technology can be superior in every measurable way and still lose. They hauled more freight, cost less to maintain, and dominated their routes for 2 decades. They were also too loud, too politically vulnerable, and too dependent on a single economic assumption. Today, not one survives in operation. A few sit in museums, silent monuments to the loudest gamble American railroads ever made. Here is the question that remains. If innovation works better than anything else but offends society and depends on fragile economics, does it deserve to survive? Or is survival itself proof of what truly matters? The turbines never answered that question. They just screamed until the world stopped listening.